We're going to get started. This is a really good, intimate crowd. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Shelly Jackson. I'm the programs manager here at Marin History Museum, and you're at our newest location. We have 3 locations, and this is our History Center. It's a community gallery where we have art-inspired exhibitions from our collection that celebrate Marin history and culture. And we also have public programs and community events like this one. And tonight is one of our first author spotlights. I think it's our second author spotlight since we opened a month ago in our new space. And we're very thrilled to have Lincoln Cushing here tonight. He is a librarian and archivist over in Berkeley, and he has published a wonderful book that you'll hear more about, and his work for the All of Us Are None project. And I'm really glad that we're having him tonight because not only is this presentation going to teach you about art and social history, but it also, I think, you'll learn a story of Marin people and Bay Area people of the San Francisco Bay Area. And that's really what our programs and our gallery is about, is to teach and educate and engage the public about Marin and the Bay Area's art and history. So it's a really good pairing for us. And I also want to let you know that we're a 501c3 nonprofit, so your donation tonight will help support us to offer more public programs and community events. And we aren't funded by the city, county, or state, so people like you really help us get going. If you'd like to become a member, let me know. We have membership brochures up at the front, and one of our membership levels allows you to get free admission at over 650 museums and galleries in North America, including the Legion, Palace of Fine Arts, the Crocker, Yerba Buena, places like that. And I also want to just let you know, if you haven't noticed, the cameras are rolling. We are here with our friends Danielle and Scott from Marin TV. So this program will be broadcast later this month. There'll be a delayed broadcast, and I will have that information on our website. So if you're on our email list or if you check our website, you'll find out when that's airing. So yeah, without further ado, I'd like you to please join me in welcoming Lincoln.
Thank you, Shelley, and thank you, Marin History Museum. My name's Lincoln Cushing. I've had a long and twisted arc in my profession. I was a poster maker and a printer. I became a librarian. I became an archivist. Layoffs were sort of part of that juncture. And now I'm working as archivist for Kaiser Permanente, which is a very interesting organization to be an archivist for. They've got a long, rich and deep history in the Bay Area. But my true love is the history of social justice graphics. And so what we're going to do today is to go through sort of a quick romp through the history of political posters and then settle into the Bay Area and talk about what makes the Bay Area so special. And it really does have a unique role in the world, and I want to sort of explain what that is and why that is, because that's really never been properly documented. A lot of this is based on a collection that I'm working with at the Oakland Museum of California. There's an exhibition that we did last year. Some of you have seen that show. There's a catalog for it. I have copies here if people want to buy them at the end. But I'm going to run you through a lot of pictures, and I'm going to explain as I go along. This is totally informal. If people have questions, just speak up. This is Michael Rossman, who for many years was a Marin resident. He's buried in the Olema Cemetery. I helped to bury him, where you actually can dig a hole and put a person in the ground without a casket. It was a very moving experience. He died a few years ago, but he was a veteran of the free speech movement. And after that, as an activist, he realized that posters were a great way to teach about history, that they're very vivid documents. And so he and I paired up and did a lot of work together to document and analyze a collection. He built a personal collection of about 24,000 posters. That's him in the corner there with his room full of very stacked posters. That collection is now at the Oakland Museum of California. So what are posters? Well, you know, you're walking down the street, you see a bunch of people. It's a crowd. Imagery really helps to define a movement and to give it some cohesion. It helps people within the organization know what they're doing, who they are. It tells you a message to the audience. If you're a news crew and you saw a bunch of people, you would know what's going on. a picture like this on the front page of the newspaper or broadcast on TV, all of a sudden people know what your issue is. Graphics really play a very, very valuable role in organizing and communicating a message. And so t-shirts, posters, buttons, here's my favorite, Nixon's the one. These are really, really important to help get a message across, and social movements would collapse without them. They go hand in hand. There's some great expressions of what these are. You know, one expression, I've heard the term paper bullets used to describe posters. I love this one from the Spanish Civil War. Soldiers of paper and ink alongside those of flesh and blood. These are really important documents. These are part of the democratic dialogue and discussion that people have, and these go on the street. If it's just printed and you put it in a gallery and you sell it, it's not a poster, it's a print. When you put it up on a street, it's a poster, that's the name. It's a public document. And it can be a piece of art, but not every piece of art is a poster. Some of the posters that I've seen that are all torn up and shredded, and they've got fingers, holes on them, and thumbtacks, those are like the most precious ones because they show they've really lived. And so when you see posters that have some life to them, you can really tell that they've fulfilled their function. This to me is sort of one of the epic earliest posters. You're talking about what was then the regulated slave trade, right? This is within boundaries what's legal and illegal in terms of transporting slaves aboard a ship. Oops, your ship is this long, you can't have too many slaves aboard. Thank God we've got health and safety standards for slavery. Well, this is also affecting the sailors aboard ships. It was an extremely dangerous occupation. So this poster was made to shock the public and to change public attitudes about slavery in general and what was allowed. And so this guy commissioned a poster. He talked to people that were actually on board ships to describe what's going on, got an artist to draw this. This has become one of the most iconic images of slavery. But it was made as a poster, and its purpose was to change public position. So let's just talk about some of the moments in poster history that really have affected where we are today. So I'm going to be going through all of these. One thing that you'll find is a big gap is between 1945 and 1965. That this was right after the war, and after the war, things got kind of hairy in this country. There was McCarthyism, there was the Cold War, there was anti-communism. It was dangerous to put your name on a political poster and have it on the street. So people didn't do it. People used other forms. So if you look at the civil rights movement, they have placards that people are carrying down the street. Those aren't posters. Posters did not really happen during the civil rights movement. They didn't even happen during the free speech movement. They had theater, dance, song. Posters, there's no posters from the free speech movement. It wasn't until later that happened, and I'll explain why. But we'll go through some of these moments in history.
Lincoln?
Yes.
Over
Yes.
here.
Yes,
I would
Alan.
say that what's often ignored is the great black mural movement.
Right. There were other forms.
Between
Yeah.
1945 and 1960, before the community.
There were other forms. And people, you can't stop a movement. It just, if you block it one place, it goes another place. It's like mercury. But posters were really popular during the Federal Arts Project, during the war. All of a sudden, they're gone. Even unions weren't making posters. It was the number of posters during that period just drops like a stone for 20 years. People almost forgot about posters. People were doing murals, they were doing other things. Lots of song, theater, film, no posters. So there's a big gap. So just as an artist looks at positive and negative space, an art historian looks at what's there and what's not. And this big gap, 20 years, you could do an exhibition of political posters between 1945 and 1965. You had trouble filling this room. So during the Federal Arts Project, artists, this was a put artists to work thing. This wasn't a let's commission art thing. And so you had a lot of unemployed people in this country. Many other people were artists. You put those artists to work doing what? Teaching art. You'd have them go to small towns. You'd have them go to New York. You'd have them go anywhere. And their job would be to teach screenplay writing, to teach poster making, to teach all sorts of things. So there was a great interplay of cultural forms going on at the time. Here's a photograph, it's sort of hard to see here, but there's people making posters. And screen printing became learned as an art form. It would have been considered a commercial art form, but all of a sudden people discover screen printing. It's a wonderful way to quickly make beautiful posters. So this period, you start to get great stuff, wonderful posters. And for many people in this country, this is the first time they'd ever had a chance to get an original piece of art. If you think about it, you know, it was rich people that had original art. You could actually buy, for a couple of bucks, a piece of art printed by a real artist that you could take home and put on your wall. I mean, this was a really democratic thing for a lot of people in this country. So that kind of thing was going on. It was a very empowering moment. Many of the posters weren't overtly political, but the whole action was very political. In Mexico, starting in 1938, there was an artist collective that got together. And the Taller de Gráfica Popular was mostly people that were experienced artists, but they said, we want to work together, we want to work collaboratively because that's the politically correct thing to do, but it's also more powerful. We can get more done. And they worked out this elaborately powerful compromise where you could do some individual work and some group work. You know, it wasn't just everybody's doing their stuff anonymously. People did their stuff as individuals, but also as a group. It was a really wonderful model for how to do political art as a collective and collaboratively. And how do you survive as an artist? Well, you do shows, you do commissioned work. They would do stuff that they would sell in expensive galleries, but then we'd pay stuff on the street. You sort of do both. I mean, it's hard enough to make a living as an artist, but they, as a group, really struggled with how do you do that and keep your politics. If you'll notice this poster, it's actually a very huge poster. It's pasted. It's 2 sheets of paper pasted together to make a really large poster. So, and that's a big linoleum block. So it's a really important way to get a big image out is you put 2 pieces together. This May Day poster isn't your typical workers in the streets. You see homeless people. You see these kids going off to school. You're talking about the contradictions of social conditions in Mexico at the time. So, you know, different ways of expressing what's going on. And these are, you know, what posters do is they get you to think about what's going on. A good poster does. You know, and they usually have some text, but the text and the image really work closely together, and a good poster is a really hard thing to do. This is talking about striking miners. You know, we will stop the aggression against the working class. This kind of stuff is really powerful. You've got, you know, clear iconic elements. You've got bayonets. Well, this is the military against, you know, the strikers, and all they've got are their hands. You know, they're saying, we are resisting you with the power of the people. Moving on to Cuba, after the revolution, 1959, they have a revolution. Well, they start to do propaganda posters, and they're horrible. They're just not very imaginative. They're boring. People aren't responding to them. But the Cuban Film Institute, starting around 1966, said, you know, we're going to start making film posters for any film shown in Cuba and any film made by Cubans. So they started making posters by commissioned artists that were just incredibly beautiful. And the political people said, look what they're doing. They're doing posters that people are responding to. So in Cuba, the political people took the cues from the cultural people. We'll find this happens again. So there's this dynamic between sort of artists and the political people. Many times they don't intermingle. At certain periods in history they do. And in Cuba, in the mid-60s, they were very much. So OSPAL was this solidarity organization, and they were doing stuff that would go all over the world. They would, see how there's little crease marks here? These posters weren't treated as a rare piece of art, and if you want to send it off to Bulgaria, you've got to roll it up and put it in a tube and mail it. They said, no, forget it. We're going to fold it up, shove it inside of a magazine that's going out anyway. And so if you're in, you know, Berkeley or Bulgaria or Shanghai, you open up your copy of Tricontinental and you open up your poster, and there you've got, you know, solidarity with Nicaragua, solidarity with South Africa. It was an incredibly powerful distribution device. So we're starting to see, well, what's the life cycle of a poster? You've got to design it, you've got to print it, you got to get it out. If you got a stack of these sitting on the floor, they're not doing anybody any good. The Cubans figured out the most brilliant way of getting these ever made. So these are posters that they made, you'll notice, in multiple languages, Spanish, English, Arabic, and French. Here's some more. And you start to see, well, gee, they got guns. You know, isn't that kind of, you know, we think here, you know, guns, you know, thugs, you've got NRA. Well, in this context, we're talking guns were for self-defense of the people. You know, this is, you know, oppressed nationalities, oppressed minorities, oppressed communities saying the only way that we can survive is to fight back. And we've got to arm ourselves for self-defense. So when you see the indigenous people of Guatemala with an AK-47, you know, this is the people fighting against the man. The man could be U.S. imperialism, the man could be the local corrupt government. What you're seeing is this iconic relationship between resistance of the people and support of solidarity. This one is the first OSPAL poster I ever saw. I think it's just brilliant, where you've got the languages forming this basket. They're stopping a U.S. bomb. They don't have to label it U.S. bomb. You know it's a U.S. bomb from blowing up a unified Vietnam. You've got North and South Vietnam represented by the flags, and you've got the act of solidarity stopping this carnage from happening. And so that's a lot of what was going on, is saying, look, all we're trying to do is go about our business, you guys get out of here. And so this kind of message was very powerful. Here's a poster that was done by a North American artist, Jane Norling, who lives in Berkeley. She went down to OSPAL. She was visiting for a couple of months, and she said, wow, you guys are doing really good with it. You want to do a poster? She said, oh, yeah, I'd love to. And then they said, oh, why don't you put your name on it? She said, oh, I thought putting your name on it was like bourgeois or something. She said, oh, no. You know, there's no problem with having credit for something. It's all for the movement. You're not getting rich off of it. So there's at the time, you've got to realize there was a whole notion that it was improper to put your name on something. It was, people worked collectively, they did things as a group. Rarely do you see individual names on posters from the late 60s into the late 70s. Well, the Cubans didn't have that attitude about it. It was very interesting. So let's look at China. This period during the Cultural Revolution. You see a lot of these giant posters. Now, their whole style of poster making was very different. It was based on a painting. People would start off with a big painting or an illustration, and then it would be reproduced in full color. The other stuff we've seen is sort of designed to be printed and didn't exist as in final form until it was printed. Whereas this stuff, these all had original pieces of art somewhere, and in some exhibitions you can see the original art. Sometimes the original art is like 5 feet by 10 feet. It's huge. It's incredible stuff. But you have these very powerful images with slogans, and you start to see some themes that come across. And again, some universal themes: solidarity, anti-imperialism, the notion of people rising up to defend themselves. So here you've got the people of the world resisting, imperialism and colonialism. Here you've got, a woman, empowered woman with a wrench. She's with this commune, and they're improving their lot with mechanization of agriculture. I mean, this is an empowering concept in a very rural, undeveloped third world country which is struggling to move forward. And so you want to engage the whole population. Well, you look at this poster. That poster's on the wall of this photograph taken in '73 in Emeryville of 2 lesbians fixing a Volkswagen engine. I mean, the idea was this is an empowering image. This is something that means something to them. I interviewed Kathleen Cleaver about this photograph where she's sitting there with this Chinese poster on the wall. She said, we didn't really know what the hell was going on in China at the time, but that poster resonated for us. This was black people sticking up for themselves. We wanted that on our walls. This was important to us. And so you realize that posters can have a collateral effect that's even unintended by its original creators. Especially because these are all posters about international issues. People in Singapore, people in Germany picked these things up and so, yeah, this means something to us. So posters are, in essence, sort of a universal language. I mean, this poster here, the Chinese poster, there's no translation on it. But they didn't need a translation to see that, a woman with a wrench, this is a powerful, strong image. Let's move on to Paris, 1968, general strike. Factories are shut down. Art students say, we got to do something. We really want to contribute to this. And now they're off at these frou-frou art institutions, but they still want to contribute. Well, one thing that they do is they say, let's make posters. So they get out a litho stone and they start to make a poster and realize, this isn't going to work. This is crazy. But somebody shows up at one of the meetings and says, there's this American process called silk screening. Maybe we should try that. And one of the people at the meetings was working in an art supply studio that was like selling commercial art supplies. Said, well, we got silk screen supplies. So they went and raided the place, came back with a bunch of silk screen supplies, and started making silk screen posters. They weren't taught silk screening in their art school because that wasn't an art form. That was a commercial. But they said, that's what we want to do because that's the only way to get the message out. They made thousands of very simple, very powerful posters, good slogans, catchy imagery. This could be, we could be talking about, teachers at San Francisco State right now. So this is from a film that I got. I bought a 16mm movie of them making the posters in Paris in 1968. And so you can see them, and you can tell these people had never done this before. They're making all sorts of mistakes, but it doesn't matter because you're getting the message out, and it was very empowering for them to do so. So let's move on to 1970, U.S. Kent State, Jackson State, U.S. Involvement outside of Vietnam and Cambodia and Laos. All hell's breaking loose in this country. Students say enough is enough. We got to do something. So every art school in the country just shut down and students started making posters. This is how you engage with turning your art skills into something that's useful. So Berkeley at the College of Environmental Design, the entire ground floor was shut down. I've got great footage, a long pan of people cranking out mimeograph flyers and writing things and printing these posters and making t-shirts. It was just a beehive of activity. People were making lots of posters, mostly about the war, but also about other stuff as well. Community control of police, the elections that were going on, food justice, all sorts of things. So you'll see that in 1970 in this country there are hundreds of little workshops all over the place. And you notice, tractor feed paper. This was free paper that they got that was dumped from the local computer labs. You often had a computer printout on the back, but on the front it's nice, clean, white paper. This is good stuff for free. You couldn't beat that. So you see a lot of these with the tractor feed on the sides. Not all of these were printed, screen printed. Some of these were done offset. But collectively, they were just this massive outpouring of work. I love this one. It's like, wow, woman with gun. I mean, this is serious stuff. Kent State. Now, this one, a lot of this stuff, as I said, was anonymous. And carefully so. And this guy said, I finally tracked this guy down. And the way that I tracked him down is because we're now putting a lot of this stuff online. The Oakland Museum, this collection of Michael Rossman's, we are slowly putting up all 24,000 of these. And people go to it, they see something, and it says, artist unknown. Well, they contact us. We want to know who did this stuff. And so I found out who did it. He says, yeah, I was afraid to put these up because I thought the ROTC students were going to beat me up. And so he made this poster. And again, very clever. You've got to play with words here, but this bizarre image, very strong. I mean, this kind of stuff was wild. And here's a picture of a wall full of stuff. This is a shot of 1970 of, the UC Berkeley. And there's his poster right there. The guy who did this sent me this poster. But he kept saying this kept getting torn down. People were enormously offended by this, which is good. I mean, this is a public dialogue. And you've got to be prepared to have people not like your stuff. But this is the natural habitat for these posters. It's not a gallery, it's on the wall of the street. Okay, so we've had a crash course in the modern history of political posters. It didn't stop after 1970. There are obviously a lot of issues, and a lot of the people that cut their teeth on making posters in Berkeley in 1970, at San Francisco State in 1969, these people are still making posters now and have spawned multiple generations of poster artists. You know, Rupert Garcia, Malaquias Montoya, these are people that were making posters. Emory Douglas with the Black Panthers, they're still around. People like to live in the Bay Area. They don't run away, they like to stay here. So you build up this tradition, and it's on top of a long tradition of labor support. We're all kind of bohemian here. We're not normal out in the Bay Area. The Bay Area has spawned this unique flavor. Well, one thing I need to talk about is, well, what's magic about the year 1965? Free speech movement, like I said, didn't have political posters. What happened in '65 was the mime troupe doesn't get a permit to do a performance in San Francisco deliberately. They flaunt the law because they were going to do something that was a little obscene. They got busted. Bill Graham says, well, I'll do a benefit concert for you. It was a total hit. And he says, wow, I kind of like doing concerts. And so the rest is history. He started doing a lot of concerts. Well, the notion of doing concerts and getting the emerging counterculture and rock music scene, well, flyers and leaflets for that spawned a thirst for people putting posters on their wall again. And just like happened in Cuba, the cultural forces led the political forces. The political people said, look, they're putting this stuff up on their wall. Let's make some cool posters. And so all of a sudden, people started making posters again. And they go crazy. So there's a lot of really good stuff. This is from 1975. This is from 78. I'm going to be jumping around a little bit, But again, sort of different ways of presenting women's issues. Using satire and sarcasm. This is a show of women's art, but this is like, this woman's got a beer and a meat cleaver, okay? Take me seriously. This poster, which was a screen printed poster, again, this was anonymous until a year ago, except for the handful of people that made it. Again, by making this stuff public and saying, come on, we want to know who you are, we know who they are. Huh? No, this is by East Bay Media. This is screen printed. This was done in '72, 2 years before Inkworks was started. They sold these as a fundraiser for various projects to end the war. It's a beautiful big poster. I've got it in my study. And again, it's a really wonderful piece of graphic art. You've got bring the monster down. So it's not like they didn't run out of room. They knew what they were doing. Down is down because it makes you think down. You've got end the air war. So you know what's going on, right? You've got the eagle. It doesn't have to have, a flag on its shoulder to tell you it's an American eagle. You're napalming, these peasants that are going about their business. They're farming, right? These people are out there going about their daily business. But you've got the spirit of resistance. You've got the Vietnamese dragon rising up from above to fight this eagle. And we all know who won. So this is just a beautiful poster, very simple. It doesn't beat you over the head. People had these on their walls 5, 10, 20 years later. So again, we learn another thing about what posters do is they help us to remember our own history. People have stuff on their wall and go, oh yeah, I was at that demonstration. Or yeah, I went to Diablo Canyon and we shut that thing down. So they are part of enabling people to feel like their history means something because you're not going to see it on the front page of the New York Times. iHotel, after 10 years. Rachel Romero did this poster. She's a filmmaker in upstate New York right now, but she was in the Bay Area, and they made a bunch of really cool posters. She was actually a Maoist, and so you'll see that this stylistically mimics some of the elements of Chinese posters during the Cultural Revolution. But it's a powerful poster. You've got the people rising up and smashing, Dianne Feinstein and the capitalist pigs. So this is really neat stuff. Native Americans, you start to realize, well, gee, everybody was making posters. African Americans, Native Americans, Chicanos, disabled people. There isn't a single community that was struggling for identification in the Bay Area that didn't have some posters. So you look at this stuff, and you've got this, again, just like the Guatemalan with the rifle, you start to make stuff up a little bit. It's not just, Native Americans like we think of them. It's Native Americans that we think of them, but It's a modern city, you've got a plane. You know, this is an arts festival in 1980. So you're starting to show that we're here, we're now. You know, and so this is all, you know, so this is really cool. And then here you've got the children of people that were sent off to the camps, you know, Japanese Americans, saying this is an injustice that we're going to help fight for our parents, because their parents were done with it. The kids picked up the baton. They were doing posters, they were doing pilgrimages, they were filing lawsuits. So this kind of stuff really raised this issue and achieved justice for indignities that their parents suffered. So you start to see this multi-generational thing going on. Really powerful graphic here. So here's Marin, right? I'm in Marin. I thought I'd bring some Marin stuff. So now one thing you'll notice, well, gee, there's 2 posters. Now, I don't know which one came first. Obviously, there was a change in the lineup. This is the same event, but one poster was done, and then, oops, I guess the Grateful Dead didn't show up, or Joan Baez didn't show up. Something happened, and they had to crank out a bunch of new posters because the band, you know, changed their mind. And this is by Stanley Mouse, right? So we're starting to see sort of the rock poster connection, but this is a benefit. You know, this is...
The second one was what happened.
Okay, okay. So I guess Joan canceled. Maybe Joan was in jail that day, or who knows. That's good to know.
Pretty sure, yeah.
Well, this is what we need to find out.
Was played.
Okay, but you know, here's another one, the same thing. I mean, I don't know what you guys are smoking over here in Marin, but they have to keep changing the posters because they get the wrong lineup. So again, I don't know which one was first. Big Brother and the Holding Company is in both. Quicksilver,
Is in both.
trees, grass. Okay, I don't know. I mean, maybe it had to do with the sponsors, but something's different. Anyway, but now Gut, again, some of these people are sort of lost in the mists of you know, this guy was, theoretically he was a biker, like with the Angels, but he also did stuff about draft resistance. Well, the Angels were on the wrong side of support for the Vietnam War. They were supporting the Vietnam War, so how can a biker be doing posters about draft resistance? So I'm trying to figure out more about him. Little is known about him.
The motif is from Bergman's.
Yeah, from Wild Strawberries or Seventh Seal, yeah. So here's Community Festival, 78. Rupert Garcia, he cut his teeth making posters at San Francisco State in the strike in 1969. He's a well-known Bay Area artist. I mean, he's in galleries, he's hot stuff. He's also still very committed. This is great, I love this. In the style of a Chinese poster, but for a local event here in San Rafael. We're talking 1978, really cleverly done. I mean, this is beautifully done. You've got, you know, the people, but they're not holding up the Red Book, they're holding up the CFFA, which is the Concrete Foundation for Fine Arts. You know, you've got, you know, Mount Tam, you've got the tools of their trade, and these are real artists. So it's a really nicely designed homage to the revolutionary spirit of Chinese political posters. I've been trying to find out the date of this one. I've talked to some people here. I've been told early 1990s. If anybody knows more, certainly, I'm always interested in knowing. You know, really simple poster, don't mall Tam Valley. There's no area code there, but it's assumed, you know, it's just local. So what do you do? But, and you can see this was torn off a wall. But this is all history. This is our history. Sometimes you'll find that this poster is the only record of this particular moment of resistance. So one of the things that's really important is cataloging these and putting this stuff online. And part of my job at the Oakland Museum, I have a second job, which is at the Oakland Museum, and we build out the catalog record. I want to know what year it was done. I don't want to say, oh, sometime between 68 and 78. I want to know, was it 68? Was it 69? Which one came first? I want to know who did it if possible, because you want to see these in sequence. You want to know, oh yeah, before this event, there was actually this event. It's part of our own history, and it's a great way to teach. I get a lot of requests for this stuff for people illustrating articles, books, curriculum materials. The Oakland Museum works a lot with K-12 teacher groups. This is a really good way to teach history. That's what Michael wanted. That's what's happening. Here's a few more. This is one of my posters, actually. This is a very popular poster around the struggle to get out of South Africa. We won that one too, actually. That was good. This No Blood for Oil was one of the very early electronically generated posters. You start to see different media. Well, people start to create stuff electronically instead of old school with paste up and so forth. So this is the first digitally produced poster that Inkworks printed.
I have that T-shirt.
Oh yeah.
I think it's 92. Do you know?
Yeah, I don't have the year on there. We know the year. The beautiful poster. Here, these issues don't go away. We pasted all over the Mission District, using humor and satire to get people's attention. Homelessness. It's not just for poor people anymore. All of a sudden, all sorts of people get shoved out of their homes. This sucks. So this is the San Francisco Print Collective. They've been doing really good stuff, picking really important issues, and they're very community-based. Again, one of the challenges is, how does an artist work? Well, you look at the model of the TGP. They work collectively, and they also work closely with community-based institutions on the ground. The worst case is some artist goes, oh, I got a great idea for a poster, and she whips up a poster and sort of drops stuff on the street, and the people go, what is this? You've got to engage with the people that are doing the work to both get the message right and to get it out. So these people are really good at working very closely with various organizations to get the message right and to get the word out. Here's another one about veterans and homelessness. This is a pretty big statistic. So again, they're raising stuff that people sort of don't want to think about. I love this one. It's just a simple slogan. Democracy, we deliver. This one is a critique of the media. This is saying, when we were watching the news about Vietnam, we saw people coming home in body bags. We saw, Vietnamese cops shooting suspected, terrorists. Well, nowadays, with embedded journalism and all that, we don't see a lot of stuff. We have a very sanitized view of the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. So this is calling that question. Really good stuff. I love this one. You take a popular slogan and you run with it. You get people to think about what's going on. So, this was the massive wiretapping going on with AT&T's consent. Well, here you got good old George Bush saying, yep, I'm listening in. But you start with the slogans. But again, when you catalog a poster like this, you got to think, okay, in 20 years, nobody's going to know that slogan. So you've got to say this was a popular advertising slogan by American Telephone and Telegraph, which will probably be called something else in 20 years. But you've got to try to tell people what the joke is, what the story is, what the message is. This poster could have been done if you'd substitute Iraq for Vietnam. This poster could have been from 1972. But again, it's a really powerful image saying, look, we're getting sent off to, fight people that aren't our enemy. When Muhammad Ali said, I'm not going to get drafted, I'm not going to go off and fight. No Vietnamese ever called me nigger. It's the same thing. It's like, wait a second, step back, think about what's the best for your own community. This is 2003. There's really good poster making happening right now. This is not a lost art form. Stencils in various forms. These are mud stencils. These are really cool. These are made with, non-toxic. This is just slightly tinted mud. You can put it on a sidewalk. Somebody doesn't like it, you can wash it away. It's not illegal, and it's repeatable. You have a big stencil. You go around from place to place. It's a way to get your message out, and it's a way to engage with people. You're out there and you're doing this. People ask you questions. You don't want to be anonymous. You want to talk to people about the issue. If you're afraid to communicate with your population, your message is wrong. So this stuff's really powerful stuff, and it's really cool to see that even stencils keep evolving. Here we are. Let's bring it up to the moment. This is last year, Occupy Oakland. This is, John Paul Bale printing posters for free. And the line for people to get posters was longer than the line for people to get food. People want an object to go home with and say, yeah, I was here. I saw the artist, just like the WPA, a real piece of art made by a real artist. It reflects the moment of their reality that's important to them. So this is something, this poster, that really cool YouTube video of you in the demo, well, are you going to be able to see that in 20 years? I'm not so sure. That poster on your wall, you bet. So this has even though posters are an ephemeral art form in archival land, they're a lot less ephemeral than a lot of stuff we're dealing with now. So they're really important, and everybody's got some. And that's it. That's what I'm talking about. I'm going to open it up for discussions and comments. So thank you.